along with the former president's supporters who were in the crowd. The former
Good
president,
evening,
who
Ms
was
Legalista here.
protected and
Just wanted to go
shielded by
live
Secret
for a
Service
little
agents. He
bit
was
and
knocked
have
to
some
the ground. They
conversation
protected
about
him.
what
He
was
then
going
rose up.
on
We saw him
at
put his
the
fist up in
rally
the
today.
air.
This
The
is
crowd
very
then
exciting,
cheered,
I'm sure,
many
for a
people
lot
telling
of
me they
people
were
who
relieved to see that
are
the former president
following
was
this to see
okay.
what's
He was
going
then
on and what's
escorted
been happening
into
here.
his own
Let me
vehicle
turn the
and he was
volume back
taken
up
away
so we can get some
immediately.
updates from
Meanwhile, our eyes
ABC
then went
News.
over to the bleachers. As you know, during these Trump rallies, the former president loves a crowd. He has his supporters all around him. He wants these to feel as intimate as possible, even though there are hundreds and hundreds of people there. So off over to the bleachers, what we then noticed were Secret Service agents and law enforcement officials. They were swarming what appeared to be one or possibly two individuals. And that is when all of us just sort of remained in that area. Law enforcement officials were telling everyone to still stay down to make sure they could get the situation under control. After several more moments, we did see law enforcement officials and Secret Service agents then take one individual away. I did notice that there was blood on the bleachers on that side, on that area. And then that was the moment where people started to clear out of that area. We saw law enforcement officials come out with crime tape. They started taping off the area. We continue to be live with you on the air, reporting what we saw and what we were learning in the moment. And then we saw Trump supporters start to file out one by one. Those crowds are very packed. And so many times you're not able to get cell phone reception
Randy.
because there's just
How are
so
you
many
doing
people
this
there.
evening?
So
It's a
this
little
area
late. I
right
certainly
here
don't
started becoming a
do lives
gathering
this
place
late,
for a lot of Trump supporters, a
there's a
place
lot
where they were
going
calling
on.
their families, letting them know that they were okay, a place
I actually
afterwards
listened
where people were
to
checking on
a
each
guy
other,
who
trying to
said
make
he
sure
was
that people
seated
were
behind the
okay.
former
And I want to
president
bring in right now
and
one
saw
person
the
who was
guy,
inside of this rally. Sir,
the other
you were
person
inside.
who was
Where were
actually
you
shot.
seated, and what did you hear?
One of the
We're
things he talked about was
seated
that he
right in the
felt
front
like
there, a
so
little
many
bit to the
people are
left,
just
about
right
6,
now.
7
But thank
rows
you for your
back,
name, Randy.
and we were
Glad
just
to have you
standing
on
up,
board.
listening to Trump talk there, and we just heard like a bullet, and you just seen him like swipe his ear there, and the next thing you know, you heard other bullets, and he fell. Then there was like probably like 3 or more shots, and then you just seen the crowd like just look over at the bleachers there, and then it just got crazy there. I mean, it was so scary, and I feel for all the innocent bystanders because there was some people that got hurt, innocent bystanders there, and we're just praying for them, make sure they're all right, and that, and pray for Trump.
What was your initial reaction when you heard those popping sounds? We were inside as well. It was one right after another.
It sounded like someone set fire, like firecrackers off, like boom, 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 and then, you realize something's going on here, and then everybody just like hit the deck, and it was pretty scary, and there must have been a shooter on the outside of the perimeter, and he must have been shooting inside and hit some innocent bystanders, because there was a big crane there with speakers, and there was a line there, and the bullet got hit, the line got hit, and you can see all the fluid go out of the hydraulic line.
Yeah. So, well, we know there's so many unconfirmed reports. We know law enforcement is still working. This is an active investigation right now. How are you feeling? Standing here right now, this has been a very chaotic 24 hours. We're living
in a scary time, though. This world, we definitely need more police, to patrol everything.
So what they said was,
hopefully we'll get that with Trump coming in
before
here.
they took him off stage.
So everyone should get out there and vote for him.
And your reaction when you saw the former president after he was shielded by Secret Service agents? We did see him pop up. He raised his fist. I heard the crowd cheering for him.
Yeah, he was looking for his shoes.
When he started all of this,
he's like, "Where's my shoes?"
But Secret Service.
Hopefully he'll be all right, though. I think he's strong and he'll come back, and
so they said that shooter
be ready for November.
Now,
well, thank you so much for your time. When I've been to almost every single campaign rally this election cycle, and this is typically an area right before the campaign rally starts. There are lines with Trump supporters, hundreds of people lining up, waiting to get checked in. Secret Service screening them one by one as they enter in. There's always a sense of sort of joy and excitement from the former president's supporters who are eager to go inside and watch him. And now, hours after this rally here, this has turned into an area where people are just confused. There is a state of that sort of panic. What do we do now? There's still some people hanging out here waiting to leave the area. Just on this other end here, there's some cars that are still sort of leaving, trying to get out of this area. You could see there the line of cars people
they
trying
really
to
check you
access
out.
this area. That gives you some perspective of
Even
just
to
how
get
many people
invited and
actually
get
showed
on
up
the list
to this
for
rally. The parking
some
lots
of
are
these
very full.
events,
And so you had people not only
even if
hanging
you get
around, but still
inside, a
trying
lot of
to
times
leave this
there
area now that
are
it's been
designated
secured off
areas where
and now
certain
that we've been
people get to
escorted out
go.
with.
And
Rachel,
so
I know
they
you've been to
will,
so
for
many of these Trump
instance,
rallies in the past. In fact, I even remember the two of
rally
us going
last
to the
week in
same one
Greensboro with the
at the
vice
same time
president.
in New Hampshire
They
back
had,
in
one
2020.
section
And
for
you've seen
elected
the
officials
security, you're
and
familiar
high-up
with
party
these
leadership
procedures. And I think
that
one
was
thing that we've
on
heard
her
from some of the
left,
witnesses
on her
there,
right.
it
They
does
had
not matter
another
your
group
political
of
affiliation here. This is a
Democrats and
sad
elected
day
officials and
in this
other people
country as we
there,
still
and
wait
then
to
they
get
had
more
some people
information,
out
especially some
front.
of
Like
those
everybody
bystanders,
had
at least
on a
one
different
reportedly
color
who lost their life. Rachel Scott for us,
strip
thank you
around their
so much.
wrist.
We do have a
And then they had
statement
a general
from
public
President Biden here,
area
and
for general
he writes
admission
that I have been
further
briefed on the
back
shooting at Donald
away.
Trump's rally in
And all throughout
Pennsylvania.
the whole
I'm
room,
grateful to hear
you
that
can
he's safe
tell
and doing well,
who's Secret
praying for him
Service
and his
and who's
family
not.
and for all
You
of
can
those
tell
at
how
the
they
rally
walk.
as we
You can
await
tell how
further
they
information.
move.
Jill and I are grateful to the
You will
Secret
turn around
Service
and
for
all of a
getting
sudden there will
him to
be a person
safety.
there
There's
who was
no
not there
place
before.
for this kind of
And
violence in
so
America.
these
We must
events,
unite as one nation
it can be
to condemn it.
scary to
A
watch
sentiment that
something
we've been
like
hearing
this.
from a number of officials on
And
all sides of
especially
the
for
aisle
the guy who just
on
did
this
the
day and
interview
these
on
remarkable
CNN
events that
and
have played
talked
out.
about
Let's go
how
back to Pierre
he
Thomas,
saw
our
the
Chief
other guy
Justice
get shot.
correspondent in Washington,
And
who's been
so,
talking to his
going
sources.
forward, I think
Pierre, one thing
security
that
is
we
really
have
going to
learned
be
in
increased. And one of the
recent
other things
moments
he
is that
said
they
was,
are treating this as a possible assassination
people
attempt
on
until they
all
learn
sorts
otherwise.
of the political spectrum right
Well,
now
this
are
is an
just
all
really
hands on deck
angry.
moment, period.
And
Law enforcement officials
violence
said
has
this will
just
be treated
become
as an
something that we're
assassination
seeing
plot
a lot
until it's
more
not. The
let me
source
see what
also
extra significant
gave an
on the
update
glasses.
saying that
The reporter is
former
drowning you
President
out.
Trump
Oh,
was
sorry.
still at a medical
I thought I turned that
facility
down.
as a few
Okay.
moments ago receiving treatment, but that he was doing fine. Again, we emphasize no life-threatening injury to the president. But again, as of a few minutes ago, the president was still at a medical facility receiving treatment.
Yeah, so I think the only thing I was just sort of saying there was that typically these events are very secure. They make you go through a whole lot of hoops to even attend. And there's a lot of security there, as you can expect. And they will have rooms and spaces divided up. But that's when you're having an event that's on the inside, an event that's in a secure space within a building. When you have an event outside, what I have sometimes seen before is they will have snipers on the top of buildings that you can see. But it sounds like the building that they're saying that was out there, that these were further back, but it sounds like this person was just beyond the perimeter. That's what they're saying. So when you have something that's outside, like you can't control beyond, you can put a fence up, but people can shoot from beyond the fence. So it's very different from an enclosed environment in a room where you can see all the entrances, you can see everybody that's coming in, you've checked out all the closets, all of the other rooms, all the windows, you're blocking they put stuff over windows sometimes. So, there's a lot more control when you have it in just a closed area like that. Let me turn it back on.
The FBI is also now going to engage in this investigation. Every effort will be put on identifying, understanding who the shooter was, this attempted shooter was, finding out more about that person's background to make sure that this is confined to a single individual. We just don't know yet. Law enforcement, again, converging now, trying to get additional information so that security can be surged for the upcoming conventions. Also, we are getting information that law enforcement will be briefed later in the evening about what took place here. But again, you have a former president of the United States who is the leading candidate, soon to be nominated by his party as their candidate. Someone attempting to apparently kill him. That is the feeling until they can prove that it's not the case. That is how law enforcement is operating in this moment.
Pierre Thomas for us, thank you so much. I do want to note we are awaiting word from President Biden. There is a podium that has been set up there that is Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. That's where President Biden was spending the weekend. We're told that we're about 2 minutes out from the president speaking tonight. Of course, he sent out that statement earlier, and we know that the president has been briefed by his staff and by the Secret Service. We're also learning that there's heightened alert across the country. We're getting reportable information from our sources here in New York City saying that following this possible assassination attempt, security is being increased across New York City. They say out of an abundance of caution, the NYPD is increasing its presence across the city, including at Trump Tower, 40 Wall Street, Foley Square, and City Hall. No specific threat, though, in connection to New York at this time. Here comes President Biden. Let's listen.
All the agencies in the federal government as to the situation, based on what we know now. I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently he's doing well. I plan on talking to them shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. And I want to thank the Secret Service and all the agencies, including the state agencies, that have engaged in making sure that people who, and we have more detail to come relative to other people maybe injured in the audience. I don't have all that detail. We'll make that available to you. I may be able to come back a little later tonight, but we'll put out a statement if I'm not able to, if it's not convenient for you all. But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody. I'll keep you informed, and if I'm able to speak to Donald, I'll let you know that as well. But so far, it appears he's doing well, number one. Number two, that there's thoroughly investigating what happened to anyone else in the audience. We have some reports, but not final reports. And every agency in the federal government, I'm going back to my phone to speak with the federal agencies that are being put together again to give me an updated briefing. Has anything happened? They learned any more in the last couple hours. So thank you very much, and I hope I get to speak to them tonight, and I'll get back to you if I do, okay? I don't know enough I have an opinion, but I don't have any facts. So I want to make sure we have all the facts before I make any more comments. Thank you.
Are you worried about President? Was the security failing, Mr. President?
President Biden with that short statement there. Again, he's in Rehoboth, Delaware for the weekend, but released a statement earlier tonight, but coming out before the cameras right now on the microphone saying that there is no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. And on that political violence, he said everyone must condemn it. President Biden also said that he made a few attempts to try to reach former President Donald Trump, but was not able to, but said that he would like to be able to speak with him at some point when he's able. But again, President Biden reiterating what we've heard time and time again, the calls for calm, for people to condemn the violence, although we don't know much about what happened other than a few reports about a shooter who's been killed and a possible bystander and the shots fired. So again, all of this sort of playing out this evening in real time as we're getting information and these truly remarkable images that we saw on the screen as they played out. We were on World News Tonight right here on ABC as the Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania got underway. And it started in high spirits as many people were anticipating and awaiting his pick for a possible running mate that was expected in the next 48 hours. So all eyes were on this event to see if Trump would hint to who that person might be. And it was a matter of minutes later when we heard those popping sounds and we went back to Rachel Scott, who told us what happened as it occurred. You see the Secret Service there surrounding the former president, forming a human shield around him, them escorting him off the stage. And as the crowd started to realize that Trump was okay, there were cheers, and he pumped his fist in response before he was led away. Again, we're told that he was taken to a nearby medical center, that he received treatment, but that he is doing okay, that he is fine. His family in a statement calling it a heinous act what has played out, but the details are still far and few. We only know the very little that we've been able to get from witnesses and from the Secret Service. We've got our entire team on this. John Carl, our chief Washington correspondent, is in Milwaukee because that was supposed to be the scene of the week's major news in the Republican National Convention. And instead, John, everything is about to change after this incident.
This thing has sent shockwaves throughout the political world. I was on the floor of the convention speaking with the Republican Party chairman, Michael Whatley, when this news broke. Saw him whisked away by an aide on the phone trying to figure out what was happening. And obviously, shockwaves not just here in Milwaukee, where the political world, at least the Republican part of the political world, is gathering for this convention that is set to kick off officially at 2 o'clock on Monday, but also over on the Democratic side. We are told, Whit, that the Biden campaign has paused all outbound communications, and they're working to pull down all of their political ads, effectively putting this intensely fought, heavily funded, very negative presidential campaign, at least for the moment, on hold in the wake of this incident. And you heard, President Biden condemn what happened. I thought it was interesting to hear him refer a couple of times to President Trump, somebody he has clashed with as mightily as any two political figures in our history have clashed, calling him Donald and saying he tried to get a hold of Donald and he hopes to speak to him, and saying that we all have to condemn what happens. And that is what is happening. We are seeing statements from political leaders across the political spectrum, not just condemning what is an apparent or being investigated as an apparent political assassination attempt, but calling for calm and saying that political violence of any kind, certainly not like this, has no place in American politics. One of those briefed on this and putting out a statement is the Speaker of the House, third in line of presidential succession, Mike Johnson, who says he's been briefed by law enforcement and says this horrific act of political violence at a political campaign rally has no place. And I think quite movingly from a former congresswoman named Gabby Giffords, who herself was severely wounded in political violence at a campaign event of hers in Arizona. Gabby Giffords putting out a statement saying, political violence is terrifying. I know. I'm holding former President Trump and all those affected by today's indefensible act of violence in my heart. Political violence is un-American and never acceptable, never a view that is being uniformly expressed across the political spectrum and obviously beyond the political world.
And obviously, John, something we also heard from the witnesses who were there tonight and witnessed this chaos and the bloodshed, asking for prayers, not only for former President Trump, but for the bystanders, or at least one who may have been killed in this incident. John, thank you. Stand by. We'll come back to you as the developments persist throughout the night. But I want to go back to Mary Bruce at the White House. Mary, just getting some more information before I come to you, because we're also told now that FBI personnel are on the scene in Butler, Pennsylvania. The FBI will work jointly with the U.S. Secret Service as the investigation moves forward. And Mary, I just wanted to pick up with you on something that John noted too about Biden reaching out, trying to speak with former President Donald Trump. These are two men who do not speak to each other. I mean, they hardly even acknowledged each other in that debate a couple of weeks ago. So the president trying to reach out, the former president trying to at least, give as much of a perception of unity in this moment of tragedy in America.
Yeah, and you heard with the president there essentially arguing that now is not a time for politics, that this is a moment where the country has to unite. You heard the president saying there is no place in America for this type of violence. And as John noted, yes, it is certainly unusual to hear President Biden refer to Donald Trump by his first name. And yes, we know that he tried to reach out to him. We don't know why he wasn't able to get a hold of him, but the president says he's going to continue to try. And this you can't understate how much it has completely and totally upended this campaign, this race, this moment that we are in America. We were just days away from the Republican National Convention. We have seen, of course, a ratcheting up of divisive rhetoric in this country. We were at a point where you were hearing, as Joe Biden has been facing a lot of doubts from those within his party about the future of his own candidacy in this race. He's been urged by others to take the fight to Donald Trump more forcefully, to outline more forcefully the case in this race. All of that now coming to a halt. The campaign announcing that they are trying to pull down. They are going to be pulling down their ads off of the airwaves. That this is a moment where instead of ramping up, you are having the campaign hit the pause button completely. Now, what will that mean? How will that change this race? Will it change the way the two parties talk about each other going forward? Will it actually bring the country together? All huge questions and things that remain to be seen in the coming days. And just one more thing, Whit. I do think it was interesting. The president there was asked if he thought this was an assassination attempt. He said, I have an opinion, but I don't have any facts, echoing what I think many Americans are thinking right now.
Absolutely. Mary Bruce, thank you so much. I do want to bring in District Attorney Richard Goldinger from Butler County, Pennsylvania. Richard, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. We've been reporting this information that you gave to some of our team here at ABC News about the shooter being dead and at least one bystander, possibly a second, also killed. What more can you tell us about this incident?
Well, I'm sorry to be talking to you under these circumstances, but yeah, I can confirm that the shooter is dead. And we have one spectator who did pass away as a result of this incident. The second individual that was removed from the scene is in what I would say serious condition. I don't know their condition at this point, but we do have at least two spectators that sustained injuries, or obviously the first one passed away from the shooter.
Forgive me, just to confirm, so the shooter is dead. You noted that, but earlier we reported possibly two spectators were killed. So now you're saying, just to clarify, one was shot and killed, another one sustained serious injuries. Their condition at this point, unknown?
That is correct, yes.
Do we know anything about this shooter?
At this point, no.
Is it a man?
I don't even know if it's male or female, to be honest with you. So
okay, so we don't know if it was male or female. Was the shooter? Is it believed that the shooter was actually in the venue, or fired the shots from outside?
I can confirm the shooter was not within the venue. The shooter was on the roof of a building that was adjacent to the venue, and so they would not have had to go through the security process of entering the rally and be subject to the search and everything.
Forgive me, I was just getting some information in my ear as you were speaking. So the shooter not in the venue, on the roof adjacent to the venue. So is it believed then that some of these other shots that we heard witnesses describe, that was law enforcement returning fire? Was it law enforcement who took the shooter out?
That I can't confirm.
That's a yes?
No, I can't confirm that.
Okay, so it's not clear how the shooter died.
Correct. At this point, we don't know. I don't know. How about that? I don't know at this point.
Fair enough. I understand. And forgive me, I know it's a fluid situation and information is coming in piece by piece.
Extremely, yes.
Richard, just your take in general. This is obviously a tragic moment in this country. I mean, not only do we have this act of political violence, we have bystanders, people out there just exercising their right to support a candidate, potentially shot and killed. What are you feeling at this time?
Well, I mean, it's terrible. First of all, I'm embarrassed for my community that this happened here. I am disgusted and sad that somebody actually lost their life as a result of this. And, unfortunately, it appears to be just almost, I don't want to say a microcosm, but the state of our country, where we are right now and how divided we are, and somebody would resort to something like this to, well, I don't know the motives, but potentially affect a presidential election. And it's really sad. Yeah, I mean, we need to, I agree with President Biden. We need to come together. We need to unite because of this. And I hope that maybe, you know, something bad like this happening, good can come of it after the fact.
Yes, let's all hope that that could be the case, and perhaps this country could have a moment of unity in what has been a very divisive time, and only getting painful by the minute here as we get more details about what happened. I do want to ask you about the bystanders. Do we know any information about them, where they were seated during this event?
I don't have that information at this point. I'm going to guess that they were probably seated behind President Trump, you know, based on the whole thing, but I don't know. I shouldn't even speculate.
Understood. Again, Richard Goldinger, we truly appreciate you taking the time this evening, and we're wishing the very best. Our hearts go out to you and your entire community as you try to build back from this tragedy. Thank you again. I want to go to, let's go back to Martha Raddatz in Washington. Martha, I know that you've been talking to not only law enforcement sources, political sources, but also folks in the military who were describing what they heard with those gunshots. We got some more information from the district attorney there. The suspect who was shot and killed, and we're not sure how, we're careful to, you know, to point that out, was on a rooftop adjacent to the venue. What does that tell you, and what's the reaction you're getting from your sources?
Well, it certainly was a ways away from President Trump, and that in the beginning, when I started talking to people who were familiar with weapons and who heard that gunfire on the tape, said they were certain it was probably a ways away from the actual venue outside the security zone, and it sounds like that has proven to be true. There were several shots you could hear, and they were very distinct, at least 2 or 3, possibly more shots, and we don't know yet whether we were hearing not just the shooter, but those who then took out the shooter. But when I look at this video, and we've all looked at it over and over, and you see President Trump get up and put that fist in the air. We've now heard from his family. We now have heard that former President Trump is okay. But this is an incredibly sobering moment for former President Trump, for his family, and for the country. There is always a possibility something can go wrong. He is surrounded by security doing the best job they possibly can, the Secret Service, but these things can happen. And when he goes out there again, he is going to be thinking of this, whether he keeps that fist in the air, whether you can't keep him down. This is something that has got to be in the back of your mind. Back in 2016, just 4 days before the election back there, he was taken off the stage by Secret Service when someone shouted gun. There wasn't a gun. He was okay. Nothing happened. But even that, I mean, you can see that moment of fear in someone's eyes, and they have a right to be afraid in something like this. I also think what we're going to have to see in the coming days, and we talk about this divided country, we talk about this heinous act, is who this shooter is, what the motive actually was, where they come from, why they did this. This will be pivotal in how the country reacts, how former President Trump's supporters act. This is something we really have to keep our eyes on in the coming days.
And not to mention the serious questions about security. I know you and many of us have been to these Trump rallies before, and you go through so much security to get inside the venue, and the metal detectors, and they check your bags and everything. There are prohibited items, things you cannot bring inside. But to get this information from the DA now that the suspect was on top of a roof adjacent to the venue, that raises serious questions about whether something, a potential threat, was overlooked.
Well, I think, again, you cannot protect someone from everybody. There are ways to get to people. I think on the venue itself, obviously, and we've all been there, and they go through the magnetometer. But if you are a long way away and you have a weapon, I know certainly they have probably snipers positioned in certain places, but I've been to events too and think, oh, wow, look at that building over there. Someone could get up there. I hope they have somebody there. They are not in every single spot at every single rally. And that's what people take advantage of. I mean, I think the Secret Service would be the first to say we do our absolute best. We lock down what we can, but people keep trying and they keep trying to get in. But we will learn more on that too. Any kind of investigation going forward, which will take weeks, months, probably years, how this happened.
Yes, this is just the very beginning. Martha Raddatz, thank you so much. I do want to go back to another witness here, Stephen Lasko, who was at the Trump rally. Stephen, if you can hear me, I understand you were only about 100 feet away from the former president. Describe what you saw and what you heard.
About 100 feet away from him, you know, could see his face. He was right there talking, having a good time. And, you know, you heard one shot, two shot. It sounded like, you know, bang, nothing crazy. And then you heard maybe 3 or 4 more. And that's when everyone got quiet, started panicking. Trump dropped right to the floor. I guess Secret Service like jumped on top of him and shielded him. But, you know, as soon as everyone in the crowd figured out what was going on, we all ducked, and my buddies just jumped on top of me, piled on top of me. You know, and we had no idea what was going on. You know, you're in total shock, you're shook, and, you know, you can't feel your legs. But we were trying to decide if we wanted to get up and run, and we had really no idea what to do. And next thing you know, you see bullets, or you hear bullets flying, and I believe a bullet hit the like hydraulic lift that was holding up the speakers, and that thing almost collapsed. There was hydraulic fluid and water spitting everywhere all over the crowd. And then before you know it, everyone just gets up and starts running. But
And
Trump
Stephen,
did stand.
Oh, forgive me. I'm sorry. There's a little bit of a delay, but on that note about everybody getting up and running, we're actually showing video that you shot on your cell phone. And this is the moment with people running out of the venue. Describe what that was like, and when were you actually able to get out?
It was pretty stressful. You know, I'm looking around trying to make sure all my buddies who came with me were with me. And, you know, it took probably a good 10 minutes to get out of there, to get out of the whole area. And, you know, before you know it, there's ATVs and UTVs flying and ambulances and all that kind of stuff. And we're trying to figure out how to get out of there and get home. But you know, we made it. And when we walked out to the road, they had, you know, police blocking everything off. And we actually found out where the building was that the shooter was shooting from. They had it all taped off. I guess it was like an agricultural warehouse, something like that. So, you know, it was pretty scary. It's like you're in the movies.
Stephen, forgive me again. I'm sorry. There's a little bit of a delay with the connection, but did you say that you were able to see the building that the shooter was allegedly perched on top of here? You said it was taped off by law enforcement. What did it look like?
It was like a kind of like an airplane hangar, maybe, you know, like a warehouse for agricultural equipment, I guess. ARC, AGC, something like that on the side. But once we were out, maybe 30, 40 minutes after, you know, they were taping it off, investigating it. They had the dogs going and all that stuff. But you know, there was traffic jams everywhere. It was kind of hard to.
How far away was that area from where the former president was standing?
Maybe 300, 400 yards, maybe less, honestly.
And Stephen, when you hear that people who were there in the crowd with you, other bystanders, at least one, maybe more, were killed, how does that make you feel?
Honestly, still kind of numb to it. You know, it's hard to process all this. You know, your heart rate is through the roof. But you know, best wishes for their family, and you know, they were supporting the country that they love. And in the meantime, it's definitely sad, and you know, it's heartbreaking, honestly.
And Stephen, we've been hearing from people on both sides of the aisle, Republicans, Democrats, you know, independent candidate, RFK Jr., and all with the same sentiment, condemning political violence, saying there's no place in this country for something like this. And I just wonder, from your perspective too, you're out there, you're exercising your right to support a candidate. You know, what message do you have for people out there? Because the country is at this political boiling point. There's so much division and anger and hatred right now from one side and the other. What would you like to tell people?
You know, at the end of the day, whether you're on the left, the right, the center, or you don't believe in politics at all, we all still put our pants on in the morning. We all breathe the air and go to work, you know, and a lot of these issues, in 10 years, no one even thinks about them or cares about them. So we're all people at the end of the day. And, you know, it's not worth taking someone's life over political beliefs or whatever. It's just senseless.
Well, Stephen, I think many people would agree with those words. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for sharing that video, and we're so glad and thankful that you and the people you were there with are doing okay. Thanks again.
Of course, and as Kelly Clarkson says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Well, let's hope that that's what happens in this country from here forward. The country definitely needs a moment of healing as we work closer and closer to Election Day. Stephen, thank you again. Let's go back to Rachel Scott. I believe she's still there in Pennsylvania. She was at this event, and Rachel, you've been speaking with witnesses, and who are you with right now?
Yeah, I'm with a woman named Erin. You were in the very first row in the middle seat, you told me. What did you see? What did you witness?
I was in the first row, and I was in the middle. I was directly in front of President Trump. So I saw him come on the stage, and it was maybe about 3 or 4 minutes. Everybody, all the photographers saw him come in. They all cleared away. He started speaking, and then we heard pound, pound, pop, pop, pop. In everybody's mind, it was like 4th of July. Somebody must have been still doing firecrackers. Then I saw the 4 Secret Service jump up and immediately push him to the ground. Then the news people that were around him, they all fell to the ground. There was 4 of them down there, and then we all stood up. None of us moved. We wanted to protect President Trump. Sorry, helicopter's landing. Then I saw the gentlemen who wear the guns in the black. They came on and they said, okay, clear right, clear left. On 3, we're going to lift them. So they lifted President Trump up, and he said, I got to get my shoes. His shoes must have fallen off when they pushed him down. I saw the red blood on his right cheek. Then when he turned, I saw the ear from the top to the bottom with red.
Erin, I'm just going to have the camera turn really quickly because we are seeing a helicopter landing. For everyone that is watching at home, this is obviously still an active crime scene where we are all standing right now. We are just yards away from where this rally was taking place. We're seeing a helicopter touchdown. We've obviously seen more and more police presence in the last hour following these events that occurred. And there are still supporters that are still trying to leave this area. You are one of them. There were hundreds of people here, and so the parking lots were very full. There was a line to get out, and so there's a little bit of a traffic jam also as well. So you described those moments. You heard the pop, pop, pop. Everyone went down for cover. How are you feeling? How are you processing this?
Well, everybody in the first row, nobody went down to the ground. They all stood up. They wanted to protect the president. All we were concerned about was him. And then kind of the Secret Service, when he got up and got into the vehicle, they told us to sit and stay seated because there was things going on. And from what I hear, there was possibly 2 shooters. There's a gentleman here that has a picture of one of the shooters that was rolled off of a building. And he was shot by the sharpshooters that were behind Trump. And I saw a gentleman leave from the left stands, and he had red blood all down his shirt. He wasn't hit, but I think he was around somebody who was. So just picking up little bits of things. We're all in shock because we never expected this. I mean, it's a beautiful rally, a beautiful night. I don't know. If no one's ever been to a Trump rally, it's very congenial. People look out for each other. It just seems like you don't see any fights and you don't see any animosity and you don't see too much. They're all pretty much focused on the president. And then with this to happen, it's just stressful. It's just sad. Very sad.
This is an open fairground where we are standing here. It was a very hot day. People were coming in with their water bottles. As you said, there was this sense of sort of joy, excitement to see the former president. All of this unfolded within minutes of him taking the stage.
I don't think it was 3 to 4 minutes, I would say. He hardly got a chance to do his, waving at everybody and welcome and maybe a couple words on the teleprompter. But some people tell me that they think one of the shots hit the teleprompter and that could have made him with the cheek.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of unconfirmed reports still out there. We're also sorting through this.
He did leave the stage on his own. He walked down the steps. I saw that. And then he put his right hand up and fist up and said, stay strong, everyone. And he kind of turned like he was exiting. He was making sure that all those people like us that were standing up knew that he was okay.
Well, we so appreciate you taking the time, and I know you were waiting to clear out from this area as well.
Everybody's just praying for our president. That's how everybody is here. So thank you.
I'm so happy that you are safe. Please get home safe. Again, that is just one of the many witnesses that we've been talking to here that are leaving these fairgrounds now after this incident occurred. As you can tell, still a little shaken up there, still processing what happened, replaying those events in our minds for what we all heard, that sound of the pop, 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 people rushing, taking cover, seeing the former president being rushed off the stage, and then ultimately all of us being rushed out of this area. Many members that were inside, many of the Trump supporters are still waiting to leave here with.
Yeah, you get the sense as we've been talking to them one after another, many still in shock. I mean, how do you process such a thing, right? Something you don't expect like this act of violence. Rachel Scott Forrest, once again, thank you so much. I do want to bring in John David Longo, the mayor of Slippery Rock, who was with former President Trump right before the rally. Mayor, if you can hear me, where were you when the shots rang out?
I was just left of the stage, sir. So to the right of the president, I was front row there, right on the barrier when the shots rang out, and still trying to piece that together. You know, I heard those sounds, and immediately I thought I knew what I heard, but I didn't want to believe it. And I thought for sure it might have been a firecracker or a gag. But by the time I heard the second one, my ears recognized the sound, and it's just a very sad situation to be in. I put my wife down to the ground and covered her up, and everybody around us, we're making sure that everybody was low to the ground and staying still and out of the way so that our law enforcement officers and Secret Service could understand the situation while I also was scanning because we weren't quite sure exactly at that time where the fire was coming from.
And forgive me, Mayor, I couldn't hear you for a second. Did you say that as you were hearing the gunshots and everybody dove to the ground, that you dove down and tried to cover up your wife?
I did. I tried to cover up my pregnant wife. We just found out we were expecting a few weeks ago, and I came here with her and my family today to come and bring them to hear President Trump speak. And my wife and I were blessed enough to be able to meet the president 15, 20 minutes before he took the stage, and had a pleasant conversation with him, and it was all smiles. And of course, that was stolen from us when this maniac decided to do what he did. And unfortunately, somebody in the bleachers right behind us was murdered by this monster.
And what's your reaction to that, to learn that at least one person lost their life today, who was just there at the same rally that you were attending?
It's sad does not describe, what that feeling is. This individual came here likely with a smile on their face, looking for hope and inspiration, looking to hear from President Trump in a place that is deep in the territory of blood red Trump country, and he did not get to leave here today with his life, and now his loved ones are probably wondering just how it is that something like this could have been possible.
Mayor John David Longo from Slippery Rock, thank you so much for your time, and we're thankful that you and your family are okay tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's turn now to Paul Eckloff, a former Secret Service for both former President Trump and for Obama. Paul, talk to me about this investigation as it stands now. Obviously, we've had reports that the Secret Service, other law enforcement agencies are treating this as an attempted assassination unless they hear otherwise. How is an investigation like this pursued from here on?
Yes, sir. These cases are exactly what the Secret Service trains day in and day out for. Unfortunately, it puts into sharp focus that the Secret Service as we know it today exists due to a history of political violence in this country, and they work tirelessly every day to prevent anything but the peaceful transfer of power. In this case, the Secret Service prepares for these contingencies by having agents in place for crime scene prevention, and they perform what's known as an interim federal presence before the FBI conducts the actual investigation on an assassination attempt.
Paul, thank you so much. Forgive me. Stand by for a moment because we're just getting new information right now. I want to go back to John Carl in Milwaukee. John, you're learning more from Trump himself.
From Donald Trump. I'm going to read it to you in its entirety, Whit. He says, I want to thank the United States Secret Service and all of law enforcement for their rapid response on the shooting that just took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. Most importantly, I want to extend my condolences to the family of the person at the rally who was killed and also to the family of another person that was badly injured. It is incredible that such an act can take place in our country. Nothing is known. This is Donald Trump saying nothing is known at the time about the shooter who is now dead. And here's key new information in this statement from Donald Trump. I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong in that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, so I realized what was happening, and then he ends it, God bless America. So a statement from Donald Trump that he has posted on social media saying that he was shot in the right ear by one of the bullets as they went by, much bleeding, and expressing his condolences to somebody at the rally who was killed, another person that was injured. That statement from Donald Trump.
And now John, as you've been with us for hours now, it's the puzzle pieces are starting to come together, at least in terms of the event today and what happened. You know, we don't have the who and the why yet, but we're starting to get the how and how this all played out tonight, because we saw earlier those images of the former president with the blood trickling down the right side of his face. We saw him flinching as he was speaking when the shots first rang out, and then reaching for his right ear. And then now that confirmation from the former president himself. And John, I know that like politics isn't really at the center of the conversation in this moment, but I can't help but just point out that you're standing in Milwaukee, you know, at the headquarters of what is supposed to be the Republican National Convention this week, major events that were supposed to take place. How do you expect that not only the Trump campaign, but the Biden campaign will then respond to all of this? What did the next few days and weeks look like on the campaign trail?
I mean, what we're seeing immediately is a pause to the political, to this very heightened stage of this campaign. The Biden campaign has said that they have they've closed off all outbound communication. They're attempting to take down their television advertising across the country right now. We've seen statements come in from across the political spectrum. Former presidents, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, the current president, Joe Biden, who we've heard from both in a statement and in a live statement to the country, condemning what has happened, offering their well wishes, prayers for Donald Trump and for those who were at his rally. We're seeing this from people who are Trump's allies, from those who are adamantly opposed to him. But there's something else we're seeing that I have to say. We're already seeing some very divisive rhetoric in an attempt to politicize what has been roundly condemned by everybody. You have seen some of the president's allies suggest that Joe Biden himself bears responsibility because of the rhetoric that we've seen in this campaign. We saw a statement to that extent coming from J.D. Vance, one of those who's waiting right now to find out if he's going to be Donald Trump's running mate. We've seen a member of Congress say much the same, except directly pinning the blame on President Biden. So for now, across the political spectrum, a pause, universal condemnation, but the early indications are that that's just not going to last very long. It could get ugly very soon. There should be a moment where the country has a wake-up call that the hateful rhetoric that we have seen across the political spectrum is simply dangerous. We know death threats have become a matter of due course for political figures in this campaign. Even before this campaign, this should be a time for people to say it's time to step back, make it clear that violence has absolutely no place in American politics. But I think what you're also going to see is, while this campaign is, for the moment, in a state of shock and pause, it's a campaign that seems like it is very well going to come back with a vengeance.
And on that point, this is going to be a huge test, no matter how you slice it in this country. Is this going to be a moment of unity at some point, Or is this a moment when people just flee back to their tribal corners, and start throwing rocks at each other again? That is going to be a major test for this country to wait and see what happens in the days to come. John Karl for us, thank you so much for that. I do want to bring also on that note, we have Rick Klein, our political director for ABC News, and our DC bureau chief joining us right now on camera. And Rick, pick up on some of these notes that we're getting from John Karl and just some of the reaction that you're getting tonight.
Yeah, just in the immediate term, Wade, I'm just a couple hundred yards away from the forum where this convention was set to go. The balloons are literally up in the rafters. There's a festive atmosphere that was here in Milwaukee just a few hours ago. All of that, needless to say, is gone. There are social events that have been canceled for tonight. No convention business as of now has been impacted. No changes to the convention that's set to start on Monday. But it has definitely changed the mood, the tone, the tenor of the campaign. The news from the Biden campaign that they have pulled all of their advertising and paused their campaign communication. And as John referenced, some very ugly things that are being said just in terms of statements right now. A lot of accusations going about and a lot of heated rhetoric even at this time that has kind of chilled politics overall.
Rick, let me ask you this, because obviously law enforcement across the country, they're going to be on heightened alert. There's going to be more security at all of these events. And I know you're there in Milwaukee. All the infrastructure is in place. What are the chances they cancel this event altogether, the convention? Is that a possibility? I mean, they have a lot to get in line within the next 24 plus hours.
I've been told that that's not under consideration right now, that the communications from the Trump campaign and from the host committee of the convention are all around planning to go ahead. But of course, things are now minute by minute and hour by hour, and it's very possible that things change. The security around a convention is intense. Which, as you know, is very, very difficult to get anywhere near an arena. There are multiple checkpoints, metal detectors. It's much harder than just going through airport security. There are a lot of layers of security. But then again, there's a lot of layers of security at events from presidential candidates. And the lapse or apparent lapse that occurred in Pennsylvania today is definitely going to impact the way that things are planned here. And if it were to go ahead, I would predict that Milwaukee's going to be something of a fortress. It's going to be very difficult to go or do anywhere. And everyone will be on an extra set of alerts, maybe rightfully so. I also think that people are going to be looking at this event in a much different light. I think the images and the words coming out from the former president about the importance of standing strong at this moment are powerful ones. I've heard from a couple of delegates already who've just said they've been impressed by the way that Trump and his team have handled this. I think this changes the nature of a convention, even though the convention itself, as of now, is set to start in less than 48 hours.
Rick Klein, thank you so much. Let's go back to Aaron Katursky, our senior investigative correspondent. Aaron, you're getting more information, details about the shooting itself.
Secret Service just a moment ago put out a statement saying that during the Trump campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, at approximately 6:15 p.m. Eastern Time, a suspected shooter fired multiple shots toward the stage from an elevated position outside of the rally venue. The Secret Service personnel neutralized the shooter, who is now deceased. The Secret Service, the statement says, quickly responded with protective measures, and former President Trump is safe. One spectator was killed, 2 spectators were critically injured, and the incident is under investigation. That's an official statement from the U.S. Secret Service. Law enforcement sources would tell ABC News the shooter was at a distance of 200 to 300 yards away in an elevated position. He was on a rooftop adjacent to the venue, and those same law enforcement sources are telling ABC News he fired as many as 8 rounds from an AR-15 style rifle.
And Aaron, this information that you bring us also lines up with what we've been hearing from witnesses. Many of those who were fleeing the venue itself, talking about a separate location, a rooftop that was then taped off with caution tape. The law enforcement dogs were searching the area. So again, as we've been on the air now for a number of hours, it's sort of this drip, drip, drip of information. But I wanted to pick up, Aaron, with a question that I was thinking about when Rick Klein was talking there from Milwaukee. Because even though, and you know this because you've done so much reporting about the heightened threat level across this country and the warnings that law enforcement have had about the threat of political violence, in this situation where they're treating it as a potential assassination attempt, law enforcement across the country must just be scrambling to sort of change their protocols and procedures to try to deal with any sort of massive event, especially as it pertains to any political venue.
Well, the political venues are usually come upon quite quickly. The campaigns will choose them. The Secret Service will do some kind of a security assessment and do what they think they need to do to keep the protectee, in this case, former President Trump, safe. Now, they undoubtedly would have accounted for nearby rooftops. We'll wait to see whether this individual, this shooter who is now dead, was in position beforehand, or whether may have tried to access the rooftop while in full view of others, and how police and the Secret Service may have reacted to that. But this is certainly going to have an impact on how police and the Secret Service go about securing these venues in the future, especially at a time when the threat environment in the country is so complicated. All the more so by the rather heated political environment we're in now, just months before the next presidential election.
And Aaron, another thing that you've reported on in the past, and I think it's worth noting here, because we don't know the motive behind this attack. We don't know who this shooter was. So that information is still to come. But regardless of whether that specific threat was neutralized, right, if it was one shooter or if there are other people who could have been involved, regardless of that fact, Aaron, you often talk about the threat of a lone wolf who could be inspired by an event. And so law enforcement has to be looking at this and also saying, okay, well, it's one thing to foil a potential plot. It's another thing if you've got somebody with a grudge who's motivated by what they saw on TV.
And I think any law enforcement official would tell you those are notoriously difficult to detect and to stop, because there is almost no warning. And how many of these security bulletins, intelligence bulletins do we see where a lone actor is identified as the most significant threat, somebody who is willing to use violence, and in this case, we believe an AR-15 style rifle, and willing to do so without any apparent warning. So right now, the authorities no doubt know who the shooter is. They've undoubtedly identified the person by now and are going through social media, talking to witnesses, acquaintances, relatives, friends, anyone they can find to give them a sense of what the motive might have been. But the stark reality is that a lone actor who is willing to use a gun is very, very difficult to detect and to stop.
Aaron Katersky, thank you so much. As we come up on the top of the hour here at 9 p.m. in the East, I'm Whit Johnson in New York, and if you're just joining us, we are following all of these major developments after the shooting at a campaign rally. Former President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, was slightly wounded in the right ear, but we're told by his campaign, by his family, that he's doing fine. Authorities say the shots were fired from a rooftop adjacent to the venue, some 200 to 300 yards away. 8 rounds fired from an AR-style rifle. That information just reported by our Aaron Katersky. And the shooter was neutralized by the Secret Service. The shooter was killed. Authorities say a second person, a bystander, is also dead. Also getting reports that another spectator may have been critically injured. The incident is being investigated now as a possible assassination attempt. The former president's son, Don Jr., says his father is under observation at the hospital and in good spirits. President Biden tonight coming before the cameras, condemning the incident, saying there's no place in this country for violence. The former president himself also releasing a statement moments ago, thanking the Secret Service and law enforcement for their rapid response, describing the incident, saying he heard a whizzing sound and shots. And President Biden, as we also noted, they're coming before the cameras. He was condemning the violence, saying all federal agencies are now engaged. He also tried to reach out to the former president personally to speak with him tonight. The incident all playing out before the cameras. The horrific moment here, the loud noises popping, the former president appearing to grab his right ear in that moment. Secret Service agents then rushing the stage, protecting him with their bodies like a human shield. Those anxious moments as everyone was waiting to see if Trump was okay.
This is the shocking moment. Chaos erupted at Donald Trump's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania.
If you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
You can hear several pops and see the former president grabbing his ear, ducking for cover behind the podium. Secret Service agents rushing the stage, surrounding Trump, shielding him, taking him down to the ground. The screaming crowd looking on in horror. A short time later, agents carefully lifting the former president up.
I got you, sir. I got you, sir. Let me get my shoes, sir. Hold that in your head, buddy.
Blood clearly seen on his face, Trump pumping his fist. Agents whisking the former president off the stage, down the stairs to a waiting armored SUV, rushing him to a local medical center.
We heard what we appeared to be gunfire coming. The former president was rushed off the stage. Right now, with Secret Service, he's being escorted into his vehicle. This was a chaotic moment that just played out right here in Pennsylvania. People running and rushing to the ground as they heard those apparent shots fired.
Tonight, the Trump campaign releasing a statement saying the former president is fine and being checked out at a local medical facility.
Just hours ago, this area was lined with Trump supporters. They entered that tent right there to be screened by Secret Service, going through metal detectors, their belongings tested. Now, this is the space where you have Trump supporters that are leaving, panicked and confused, as Secret Service agents rush us out of this area and back to our cars.
Tonight, the crowd still in disbelief.
Tell me what you saw and what you heard. You said that you heard the popping sounds and you got down.
Sounds. At first, you think like maybe firecrackers, but it continued. It continued, and then somebody yelled, "Get down!" We got down. We got down, and we huddled and we started praying.
Tonight, local officials telling ABC News those sounds were in fact gunshots, live rounds fired from outside the security perimeter. This is being investigated as an attempted assassination. And tonight, the local district attorney telling ABC News at least one person is dead and the shooter is dead as well. Tonight, President Biden addressing the nation.
I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently he's doing well. I plan on talking to them shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it.
Those words from President Biden tonight saying everyone must condemn it, something that we've been hearing from politicians on both sides of the aisle. And Rachel Scott is back with us now. Rachel, you've been here since the beginning tonight. We were talking to each other during World News as the rally was just getting underway, and you've been getting these horrific stories from witnesses, and you're with another one tonight.
Yeah, we're with another group of witnesses that saw what happened. I will tell you, hours ago, this area right here was filled with Trump supporters eager, waiting to go inside of that rally. Right now, tonight, this is an area where Trump supporters are gathering. They're left with shock about what happened. Tell me what you saw inside.
Yeah, I was just about like 30 feet from Trump, and then I saw the people that had been shot, and they were bringing them down in the stands right above me, and I just didn't want to get down. I just kept standing. But I saw the man that was hit in the head, and there was a lot of blood, and I knew there was no way he was going to survive that. And then there were two of them that they brought down, but it was like real chaotic, but I didn't get down. And so it was very interesting. We were just right there.
What was going through your mind as you saw that person with tons of blood on them?
Yeah, at first I was thinking, I thought different thoughts, like maybe this was the shooter and then he committed suicide, or maybe someone shot him. That's what my first thoughts were. I didn't think about just like someone that was in the stands. Yeah, that's what I thought.
And now knowing that this is someone that was in the stands, how are you processing this?
No, I think we're all in shock. Yeah, we're numb. Happened.
Can I say, when I heard this going on, I thought it was a firecracker. Just like with Kennedy, people thought it was a firecracker. And I looked, we were 20 yards away from Trump, and then we were 20 yards away from where I thought it was a firecracker. But then now I'm thinking maybe those were bullets that were going over our head. Yeah. And then they were saying, get down, get down, get down. I just wasn't processing. It took me like 2 minutes, and I finally hit the deck. But I think it's just like you're in shock. And how did the guy get the gun in there? How did he get the gun?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because is this your first Trump rally?
No.
So I've covered a number of Trump rallies. I've been to almost every single Trump rally this cycle. You've been to a number as well. You're fully aware of the security precautions. Trump supporters, as they're making their way in, they have to go through magnetometers. Your bags are searched. Your pockets are searched as well. And so any area where you're around the former president, there is a sense of safety. And so to have this occur, what was going through your mind as you heard gunfire, get down, get down?
I think first I was in shock, but I do think I'm drawn to some of this I cried out for the Secret Service. I passed everything, but then they said, take your glasses off. That was the end of it. So my whole life would have been changed, but I couldn't see. But I guess I like to be where the action is in some ways. So, but I mean, not this, obviously this is just horrible, just horrifying. But
Trump survived. That's good. It would have been horrible news, worse news if he had been killed. So that's good. At least we had that. But yeah, we're all in shock here. It's really something. I just got done saying every generation thinks, well, we're past that. We're not going to have any more assassination attempts, and then you have something else, and maybe that's really hard to stop.
I thought it was firecrackers.
Yeah, you thought it was firecrackers. Yeah, I mean, so many people did. Initially, when that first happened, there was a lot of confusion for everyone that was inside of that fairground near. We heard the pop, 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 pop sounds. We heard shouts of gunfire, but we did not know for sure. We were just all told to get down. And then from my understanding, it was also law enforcement that told you all to just stay down, even though the former president was already escorted to make sure that they had the situation under control.
They kept saying, stay down, but then curiosity overcame me. After about 5 minutes, I stood up and there were like 6 or 7 men with AR-15s or whatever, whether they AK-47s or AR-15s, and they were just like hawks. They were looking around, staring at everybody, and their guns ready, and one guy looked kind of nervous. I mean, it was just, kept thinking that we're going to be a part of history here, so. Yeah. But it's just it's horrible. I felt bad when that guy that was shot because there was so much blood and things. So, he was right above me, so I thought, oh, there's no way he survived that. But, yeah, what a day.
A hard thing to witness, and I so appreciate you all taking the time to speak with me, and I'm glad that all of you are safe. Please get home safe. Again, with just this sense of disbelief, trying to process, replaying those events over and over in your head, that's what everyone here that was inside of that Trump rally is still having to contend with as they process the moments that happened, those frantic and chaotic moments of what they witnessed inside with.
Yeah, and I can't help but think there's going to be a lot of trauma after this event for all of those witnesses who are there, watched this unfold before their very eyes, and also knowing that one of their fellow supporters, somebody who was just there, part of the rally, at least one person lost their life today. Rachel Scott, and to you, we can't thank you enough for all your reporting throughout the evening. Stand by, we'll come back to you if news develops. But let's bring in John Cohen tonight, ABC News contributor, former FBI. John, there are so many questions about what happens now with this investigation. Take us through this process. Where do they begin?
Well, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to identify the suspect. They're going to try to determine by evaluating their social media, their communications, their interactions with other people that they are associates with, whether this was an act of a lone offender or whether it was part of a broader conspiracy. They're also going to be looking for any type of follow-on events. Part of the danger in a situation like this is that people may view this as either an act to be replicated or may seek to respond. So law enforcement very quickly across the country, quite frankly, is going to be looking at trying to prevent any residual events following this incident.
John, thank you very much. And we do know that the FBI is joining the Secret Service in this investigation. Let's go back to Martha Raddatz. Martha, you've been talking to sources, also military sources, and you have some new information, what you're learning about the weapon.
Well, we know from our own reporting from Aaron Katersky and others here at ABC that they believe it was an AR-15 and that the shooter got off 8 rounds. Talking to a military source who said it is the same thing as an M4, which they use in the military. We train to shoot at our ranges out to 300 meters without optics or a scope. A good shooter can easily shoot further with an optic. That's about 330 yards. And it's believed the shooter was 200 to 300 yards out. This military officer said the 300 yards is definitely in range, not an easy shot, but 100% in range. And this is very sobering, Whit. He said, I am surprised he didn't hit him. We do know that his ear was grazed and not certain exactly how that happened at this point, although Donald Trump said he believed it was a bullet going by him. But I am surprised. This military officer also says that it was likely, given the sounds he has been listening to all day on that tape that we have been playing and that Donald Trump himself heard and everybody there who was there, that it was far away, but that perhaps the shooter tried one shot, missed, and then got off several very rapidly just into the crowd.
Yeah, 200 to 300 yards away, and that shooter on top of a roof. And Martha, to your point, it is worth emphasizing that. I mean, former President Trump says that he heard the bullet whizzing by and that it pierced the top of his ear, literally inches away from taking his life.
It certainly would have been if it, in fact, is proven to be a bullet that went right by his ear. Millimeters. And, you know, the way you turn your head or you don't turn your head. And again, that we have to emphasize this was clearly in range for a weapon like that, whether the shooter had a scope, whether the shooter did not have a scope. Even without a scope, this military officer says you can take someone out at that range. Again, the dangers of these kinds of events with people way outside of the event itself, way outside security, and that is something the Secret Service is going to have to look at, local law enforcement as well, how this person got on that roof undetected by police or anyone else carrying a rifle up there, carrying an AR-15.
And again, we still don't have information about the threat itself, the motive, who the shooter was. We haven't even been told by law enforcement, you know, whether they think the threat is over. So still a lot more information to come. Martha, thank you so much. We appreciate it as always. And throughout the evening here, we've been speaking with many other eyewitnesses. You heard from Rachel earlier. We spoke to some live on the air who were at the rally describing how the former president had just started to speak and then the shots rang out.
What you saw and what you heard. You said that you heard the popping sounds and you got down?
Sounds. At first you think like maybe firecrackers, but it continued, and then somebody yelled, get down. We got down, and we huddled and we started praying. And we just started praying, and thank God, a little while later, we got up. When we saw other people get up, we saw Trump get up, raise his fist like I'm okay, and we kept praying.
I felt really bad. I'm worried about our grandchildren. What kind of life are they going to have if this goes on, if people don't have the right to say what they want?
You told me that you were near the very front. You weren't very far.
No, we were like from here to where that thing is.
And you got down, you said you got down immediately?
Yeah. Yeah, everybody yelled, get down. My daughter-in-law, Lisa, she said for us to hurry up and get down.
Well, I mean, I saw all the Secret Service kind of cover Trump. They did a really good job about that, making sure he was protected, telling everyone to get down. So I think they did take a good care of making sure everyone was understanding what was going on and being serious, but not freaking everybody out.
What was your initial reaction when you heard those popping noises?
To get down. Yeah. So I actually my boyfriend pushed me on the ground and went on top of me, which was really nice. But I think a lot of people were a little too shocked to understand what was going on originally, for sure. But I think everyone listened pretty well, and it was handled pretty well.
Did you see some of that commotion that was playing out on the other side of the bleacher where we saw law enforcement agents sort of swarm around another individual, or did you ultimately just rush out?
No, we were there for a minute because they did tell us to go back down again just in case. I think that was good because it helped calm people down. But I think one of the stands that I was next to, they did carry out a man, and there was another one that might have been injured. I'm not 100%, but definitely one at least. And on the other stand on the other side, because I was on the right, on the left, there were a bunch of men in uniform surrounding someone. So that was interesting to see.
You said that you were very impressed by the speed in which Secret Service was able to get on that stage within seconds of all of us hearing those popping sounds.
Yeah, absolutely. They did a great job. I definitely felt protected in the situation. The sniper was on it, watching on guard. Everyone on the scene did a great job. I mean, of course it was nerve-wracking in the moment, but I never felt like I was in danger, which was cool. They were on the president, which I'm very thankful of, and they did a great job protecting him and getting him out as quick as possible. He is doing good, which is good. Yeah.
I'm the Republican nominee for the Senate in Pennsylvania. I was in the front row, and President Trump had just announced me and said he was going to have me come up on the stage, and said, well, wait a minute. And then there were a number of shots, I think probably 7 or 8 shots. It wasn't clear whether they would come from one place or 2 places, at least I couldn't tell. And immediately there was a swarm of Secret Service officers that, got on top of and knocked down President Trump and got on top of him. And then he stood back up, and you sort of saw this fist come out, sort of defiant that it looked like he was okay, but you couldn't tell for sure. It looked like there was some blood, but it wasn't obvious. And then the entire crowd went to the ground because we weren't sure whether the shots were done. And then unfortunately, over my shoulder, someone had clearly been hit. I was on the ground, and up in the bleachers, probably 3 or 4 bleachers behind me, it looked like there was a man who was severely injured. There was a lot of blood, and his people around him were trying to administer first aid. And then some police officers came in and carried him out, and presumably took him to get first aid. That's really all I could see. I don't know if there were other people injured, and I don't know if there was anybody apprehended, because as you might imagine, once that happened, the crowd was very chaotic, and it was very hard to know what was going on. And we're still there at the rally, just sitting trying to get out because the traffic is so backed up.
And Dave, your account seems to confirm some of this reporting that we're getting about a shooter and potential bystanders who were hurt. Just talk more about your initial reaction. I mean, seeing this, you're running for Senate in the state of Pennsylvania. You're about to walk up on the stage. You're getting introduced by the former president, and then you hear these shots ring out and the chaos in the crowd. What was going through your mind in that moment?
Well, it takes a minute to process. People started to panic all around. You could feel, people were very scared, and so, everybody just dropped to the ground. And it felt very obvious that the president was under assault, and very much at risk. And it wasn't clear that he was okay to begin with. And then, once it started to sink in, you're thinking, are there still shooters out there? Are they going to target other people? And, it's just like these, situations. I was in the military previously. You realize over time that the facts start to come together. So you got to be careful not to draw too many conclusions early on. But I think what we all felt was a sense of, oh my Lord, everybody's in danger because there's clearly a shooter, at least one shooter in the crowd, and maybe more. And really, I think scary for everybody who was there. And shocking, even more than scary, just shocking, because you were in the middle of this rally, and it was kind of fun, and people were enthusiastic, and all of a sudden it was turned upside down.
What does this say to you about our state of division and the politics in this country right now?
Well, I don't want to draw any conclusions before I know more about it, but obviously it's if you're a public official, if you're a presidential candidate, and your safety's at risk, that's scary for all of us, no matter what party you're in. And so I think it's a moment to take stock. And you had 15,000. It seemed it was a huge crowd. I was told by the law enforcement people there are 15,000 people who were enthusiastically supporting their candidate, and all of a sudden, the former president, his life is at risk, and what were peaceful people in the audience are wounded, potentially, fatally, I mean, that's unacceptable, and it's not a matter of party. That's just unacceptable in our great country.
I do want to go to Leonard Verdetto, who is an eyewitness who was there at the rally today. He's joining us now on the phone. Leonard, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, Leonard. We're so grateful that you are okay. Can you just walk us through what happened and what you saw?
Sure, absolutely. So everybody was excited to see the former president coming out. You know, we were all, excited, and we were all happy. We were all joyful. We were all there for each other. And then the former president was giving his speech. Then moments later, there was some, popping sounds that were going off. So about maybe 6 or 7 to 8 shots that were happening. None of us really registered at the time, but then all people were saying, "Get down, get down." Even I was saying, "Get down." Other people were saying, "Get down" as well. And, we were all praying. We were praying to Yeshua, the Lord Jesus, and we were praying to him to keep us safe, keep us protected. But unfortunately, what happened was, someone did get shot. What I do hear is that I think 2 people did get shot, that to the best of my knowledge. And I believe that, the former president, which I'm glad he is safe. So.
Now, Leonard, and again, we don't have all these things confirmed yet, so this is your perspective here. But when you say that you believe that 2 people were shot, could you actually see people, potential victims?
What I seen, and to the best of my knowledge, sir, is that and again, I was hearing it from other news sources as well. But what I first seen that there was blood on a couple of people. Someone was shot just like about 5 feet right behind us, to be honest with you. So we were that close, and thank God we weren't shot either.
And where were you located? We're looking at the video right now. This is the former president being brought back to his feet after those shots were fired. Were you on the stands behind Donald Trump, or were you in front of him?
If you're looking exactly at him, we'd be on the left side, actually. We were the left side of the other stands where you've seen those big TVs.
So the left side of the stands facing the president or behind the former president?
Facing the president. We were more on the side, looking on the side of the president, so facing him.
And Leonard, let me just ask you too. Obviously, you go to we've been talking about this, the division in this country, the polarization. But here you are. Obviously, you're exercising your right to support whichever politician you believe in. And you go to an event like this, you don't expect there to be violence. What's in your heart right now?
Well, what's in the heart right now is I'm encouraging the American people to pray to Lord Jesus, because right now our country's divided.
Again, those words from some of the witnesses that we heard from throughout the hours this evening who were there inside this venue in Butler, Pennsylvania. The event was supposed to be sort of a precursor for the big week at the Republican National Convention. Former President Donald Trump had been hinting that he was going to announce his running mate in the coming days. So all eyes were on this event when the gunfire rang out. And then those terrifying moments and these images you continue to see here with the former president being escorted off the stage with the blood trickling down the right side of his face. The former president in a statement once again saying that he was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of his right ear, and he immediately knew that something was wrong when he heard the whizzing sounds and the shots. Some of our other reporters getting information from law enforcement that they now confirmed that the shooter fired as many as 8 rounds from an AR-style rifle while perched on a rooftop adjacent to the venue. The shooter was 200 to 300 yards away at the time of the gunfire, and that shooter was shot and killed by the U.S. Secret Service. We know at least 1 spectator, possibly 2, were shot and killed. One of them we know was confirmed dead. Another one sustained serious injuries. We're still waiting to get more information on that. Law enforcement also unable to tell us at this time what the motivation was, who the shooter was, whether it was a man or a woman, and whether the threat fully has been neutralized, or whether it was a lone actor. So still so much information that we need to learn throughout the course of the evening and in the coming days. Well, let's go back to our entire team who've been with us on the air for several hours now. John Carl is in Milwaukee because that was supposed to be the location for all the news this week at the Republican National Convention. John, you've been talking to Republican sources there. In fact, you were in an interview when reports of these shots first came out.
I wasn't in a formal interview, but I was standing on the floor of the convention with the person who was running this convention, Michael Whatley, the chairman of the Republican National Committee. We were just, talking about the big week's plans ahead, speculating on when Trump will actually make the announcement of his running mate when this news broke. And as you can imagine, shockwaves throughout the hall. Nobody really had any idea yet what had happened other than those initial reports and that shocking live video. He took a call from one of his aides and was whisked off the floor to try to figure out what was going on. This has effectively put a freeze on the campaign, at least for the moment. And it's not just here in Milwaukee, where although the convention is starting on Monday, you are already seeing Republicans from across the country gather here. In fact, there was supposed to be a big welcome reception tonight. As you can imagine, that has been canceled. All events, the pre-convention events, have been canceled. Over on the Democratic side, we've heard from the Biden campaign that they have stopped outgoing communications. They say that they are working to pull down all of the political television advertising, all the political advertising that is up as this campaign is effectively put in a state of deep freeze. And then we're hearing statements across the political spectrum, I think most prominently from former presidents, where we heard from President George W. Bush, who said that Laura and I are grateful that President Trump is safe following the cowardly attack on his life. He commends the Secret Service, obviously, as somebody who was also protected by the Secret Service. We heard a similar statement from Barack and Michelle Obama, a similar statement from Bill and Hillary Clinton. We've heard statements from the president's allies and from his political opponents, all saying that violence has absolutely no place in American politics, uniformly condemning this. But I have to also say we are starting to hear some very unfortunate signs of efforts to politicize this horrific event.
That's right. We noted before, this will be a big test to see how the country responds, politically, yes, and in living rooms and workplaces across this country. John, thank you so much. I do want to hear from another person who was there at the event, witnessed the gunfire. Rico Elmore is joining us now. Rico, if you can hear me, just tell us where you were when you first heard the shots.
Thank you so much. And also, with all due respect, my prayers go out to the family when it all occurred. I know it's very rough. So I was positioned probably about maybe 20 feet away from the president at the point in time when he was making his address. I was to the right of the stage due to me being I was a speaker at the event. So I did my speech earlier today. During the pre-program, and I was a few feet from where this all occurred. We heard the shots, and I thought it was, first I thought it was fireworks because, people are on edge, and any kind of loud boom you hear, you're going to think gunshots immediately, especially because of the environment of what was going on. And I turned around, and someone yelled medic. And I looked, and there was no way a medic could have got to that person in time. So I left my seat, took my tie off, I jumped over the barrier, and I ran to the individual. But when I got there, it was too late. The person was bleeding out through their head. And like I said, once again, respects to the family because this is a very tough time. But they were shot, and I tried to, block the wound. I held a towel against it, and until a medical team arrived and got him out. And, from there, I helped the police and crowd control with getting people out of there because people were very nervous. People were very hesitant, and we had to move people fast and get them into a safe location opposite of where the shooter was at or said to be at. So I assisted with getting people down and getting people out. And I try to keep kids calm and just get people clear.
Wow, Rico. Obviously, we want to be sensitive to the victim's family. But can you tell us more about this person? Where they were? Was it a man? Was it a woman?
Well, it was a male. It was a male victim. He was literally just sitting there in the stands. He had to be maybe 3 or 4 rows up from the bottom of the bleachers where everybody was sitting. And 1 second, where everyone's cheering and happy and listening to what Trump's saying, and the next minute, he's gone.
Rico, did you have any training in this sort of like first aid? I mean, this is life-saving aid that you're describing here.
I mean, I'm in the military. I'm in the 171st Air Refueling Wing, and we learn first aid and self-aid buddy care and basic training. And at the point, as soon as I heard the shots and I seen and heard someone yell medic, my first instinct was, I'm trained in self-aid. I'm trained in applying a tourniquet, but I'm not trained to see someone's, what I witnessed.
I mean, nobody can be trained for that. And we're getting the sense, Rico, not just from you, but from others, I think there's going to be some serious time, some healing that's going to need to take place for the people who were there and saw all of this, and especially for you to see everything up close. And you got the sense early on that that this person was lost?
From understanding head wounds and how they operate, when I seen what I seen, I was afraid that person was lost. And reading what has been done, said, and stated in the news so far, those are now facts, which is a shame.
Rico, I don't even know if these are the right words to ask this question, because most people have never been in this situation, but how are you processing what you saw and what you witnessed?
I mean, one can only process what happened, hopefully as slow as possible. But my worry, my heart at this point in time is not for myself, but it's for the families of the loved one.
Rico Elmore,
that's important.
Thank you again for your time, and I'm sure the family is grateful, at least at your efforts, that you jumped in and you did everything you could to help out. And of course, our hearts go out to all the victims and you as well. And we're thankful that you're okay and able to share your story. Thank you very much tonight.
Thank you.
Again, that's one of the many witness accounts that we've received from Rico Elmore there. Really horrific in how this played out. These terrifying and chaotic moments that people described for us. And it went from jubilant people in the crowd, eager to hear from the former president, to within a matter of seconds, the pop, pop, pop that people thought at first maybe sounded like fireworks before the horror of what actually happened came into focus. Let's go back to Martha Raddatz. Martha, I know you've been talking to sources here. And I got to say, it's one thing when we get the reports from law enforcement, but when you hear from a witness who, witnessed someone die before their very eyes, it's a reminder of just how horrific and historic this event was today.
And how tragic. Yeah. And I think most of us just saw what happened to former President Trump, and we're all thankful he is okay. But what happened in that venue, and hearing the story of that young soldier or military person leaping into action, which is not a surprise, going there for a jubilant celebration and having to deal with that kind of tragedy is sobering to us all. I do know that the weapon that the shooter apparently used was something that could be fired from 200, 300 yards away or even more, and could have been accurate. They very well he very well could have shot more people. He very well could have killed former President Trump, even though he was 200 or 300 yards away, because that kind of weapon has that kind of range. We don't know yet whether he had a scope on that weapon or any sort of scope whatsoever. But even so, even just with the naked eye, he was clearly shooting within range of President Trump.
Yeah, still so many questions about how this played out, who this shooter was, the motivation there, and where the investigation goes from here. Martha Raddatz, as always, thank you. Let's go to Josh Margolin, one of our senior investigative producers, who's been getting new details from law enforcement. Josh, what are you learning?
With the key part of the investigation, a key part of the investigation will be on looking at where the shooter was, elevated position, as the Secret Service now confirms. Elevated positions have long been perceived by law enforcement as a real risk to events, to people that gather. Look, just in recent years, we saw the Highland Park, Illinois mass shooting on July 4th. 2022. That was a shooter who was at an elevated position. Of course, the Las Vegas massacre, the worst mass shooting in American history, that was with a shooter who fired down from an elevated position on the Las Vegas Strip. And obviously, we can't forget President Kennedy was killed by a gunman who was located floors above the motorcade that Kennedy was in when he was assassinated. Elevated positions are the Secret Service prepares for this. So a key thing is going to be, how did this gunman get to the location? Why was that location available to that person?
Exactly. And I think obviously this is early on, and it's hard to ask some of these hypothetical questions now. But Josh, like all the surveillance and the scanning of these areas that go into place before the event even occurs, and the drones and the helicopters and devices up above, it's hard to imagine how something like this could have been missed from 200, 300 yards away, a rooftop elevated position. That will definitely be part of the investigation going forward.
Absolutely. And in fact, the Secret Service has already gone public during the January 6th committee hearings. There was testimony about the Secret Service. They know that people that come to Trump rallies sometimes come carrying weapons, not necessarily because they want to hurt anybody. People carry weapons, but you're not allowed to bring those weapons into proximity of the president, of the former president, of the candidate.
Josh Margolin, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Let's go back to Rick Klein, our political director at Washington bureau chief, who's there in Milwaukee. I just want to get more on your response, because it is hard to imagine how this week of the Republican National Convention is going to play out, business as usual or as planned. What are you learning about some of the adjustments or changes that could be made in the coming hours?
Whit, I was told just moments ago that there were no changes to the convention itself, but I would note that there is precedent for condensing a convention in the event that you need to. There have been times where major storms, either in a convention city or elsewhere in the country, have forced the cancellation of one night. There is plenty of wiggle room in a schedule like this to be able to do the convention business in fewer than the 4 nights that are now scheduled. But I am told that things are still on track as of this hour, although things are changing fast. But Whit, I would mention, just to understand what a convention is like, it's not just what goes on inside the arena itself. That's the main convention business. We're talking about dozens, maybe hundreds of other events throughout the weekend. John Carl's been reporting about things that are canceled tonight. Well, tomorrow night, there's a 15,000 person open air welcoming party for all delegates and invited guests. That is an enormous event, and it's an enormously hard event to secure. Similarly, you've got talking about breakfasts that happen around the city in hotel ballrooms and private residences. So many opportunities to worry about the security footprint that involve elected officials, maybe even the president himself, or the former president, or his vice presidential running mate might be slated to attend things like this. So you have to think about not just the event itself, which is still on, but everything surrounding it. This was a city that was ready to celebrate this moment. It is now a city that is worried, concerned about this increased threat environment.
Rick Klein, thank you. Let's go back to John Carl, also there in Milwaukee. And John, picking up on that point, because this is not just known threats with security, right? It's anybody who could be motivated. We've talked about lone wolves and that threat in the past. It's somebody who may see an event that they saw and then be inspired to do something that can be almost impossible to plan for, especially when you have large gatherings of lots of people.
Yeah, and look, this was already a place that was going to be in lockdown for the next week. I mean, I am here just outside the convention center hall, and you can see, I mean, you can't see, but I can see right over here the fencing that has been put up to basically secure this place, several block radius, basically already on lockdown, even though the convention itself doesn't start until Monday at 2 o'clock Eastern time. But they were preparing to keep this, and I've been covering political conventions for a long time. Heightened security is not new, but there does feel to be something different already before this terrible event in Pennsylvania. A heightened sense of concern, again, given the threat environment, given the fact that death threats have become just a matter of course across in our politics. Political figures, public servants, journalists facing this kind of stuff. So there's, I can only imagine what the next few days are going to look like here.
Yeah, the next 24 to 48 hours, there could be some big changes, even though for now they appear to be staying the course with the plans. John Carl, thank you. Let's go to our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas. Pierre, you've been reporting on these threats for months now. Law enforcement, they've been aware, they've been worried about it. This obviously a worst case scenario as they are now investigating what appears to be a possible assassination attempt of a former president.
Indeed, we have a new statement from the Attorney General. He expresses his concern for former President Trump. Says his heart goes out to the victim, the spectator who died. He also issues a statement saying, quote, "We will not tolerate violence of any kind. Violence like this is an attack on our democracy. The Justice Department will bring every available resource to this investigation." And we have some more clarity now about exactly how this is going to unfold. The Justice Department's National Security Division, along with the FBI, will oversee this investigation with support from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Pittsburgh. So what that means is that this is officially being looked at as an assassination plot, potentially that is going to be investigated until they can, as another source said, determine otherwise. That tells you the level of concern. Also, I'm being told by sources that law enforcement will be looking at security for all major public events, particularly those involving politicians, in the coming days. As you said, Whit, the elevated threat environment has been of great concern by the FBI director, and sources within the Attorney General's office have been telling me repeatedly in recent weeks that the biggest concern he had going forward toward the fall was this spike in threats of political violence. And the fact that also terrorism, ISIS, all these different things were surging at precisely the same time. That is the environment that we face ourselves with. And the other thing that's very important, too, from a source I just spoke with, is that until they can get a definitive blueprint, understanding of who this suspect is, they are not releasing very much information because they cannot yet say that this is contained to only this event. They cannot yet say that.
Pierre Thomas, thank you. Let's go back to John Carl. I understand you have a new statement from the RNC.
Yeah, this is a joint statement from the Trump campaign and from the Republican National Committee, and we just got this in, so I'm going to be reading this to you for the first time here on the air. A statement from the Trump campaign and the RNC. As was communicated earlier this evening, President Trump is doing well and grateful to law enforcement and to first responders for their fast action. President Trump looks forward to joining you all in Milwaukee as we proceed with our convention to nominate him to serve as the 47th President of the United States. As our party's nominee, President Trump will continue to share his vision to make America great again. So the key line there is that President Trump looks forward to joining you here in Milwaukee to continue the plans for our convention. Nothing is changing here in terms of the convention going forward. In fact, an individual I spoke to who has been involved in the planning here said they were still working things out, but predicted that the convention wouldn't just continue, but it will continue with a vengeance. I expect not just all 4 days of this convention to take place, but it to be a very energized convention and very much focused on portraying Donald Trump as somebody who couldn't even be stopped by an attempted assassin.
All right, John Carl, let's go to someone who knows a lot about Republican conventions, and Reince Priebus, our political contributor, who's also a former head of the RNC and former